My goal here is to educate people. We are law-abiding, responsible gun owners, and please don't legislate the 150 million people just like me into being criminals. Like it has happened. You've already done it. The legislation on bump stocks. I was a bump stock owner, and I had to make a decision: do I become a felon, or do I comply? And like that gentleman that just got escorted out, I will not comply with the assault weapons ban.
Gemini ha dicho, the central controversy of modern firearm legislation lies in the tension between public safety and the erosion of individual liberty. When a veteran law enforcement officer with over 2 decades of service declares she will no longer comply with federal mandates, the conversation shifts from policy to principle. This defiance suggests a breakdown in the social contract, where the law is no longer viewed as a shield, but as a source of arbitrary persecution. Diana Muller, a retired police veteran, represents a segment of the American population that views firearm ownership through the lens of lived experience and professional expertise. Her background in patrol and narcotics provides a unique perspective on the limitations of the justice system. Her transition from enforcing the law to challenging its expansion highlights a growing skepticism toward the legislative intent behind gun control measures.
And I'm an ordinary American, one who has had different life experiences that bring me here today as a dissenter of any new gun control laws, including the assault weapons ban. After 22 years as a police officer with assignments that included patrols, street crimes, gangs, and narcotics, I retired to focus on a second career as a professional shooter, and I've had the honor to represent our country on an international stage. 4 years ago, I came to this town as a tourist, and during a haphazard meeting with my congressman, I asked if there was anything I should be doing to dispel the information about guns and gun owners that's running rampant on Capitol Hill. From there, the DC Project was born, an educational and nonpartisan effort of 50 women, one from every state, meeting their legislators as gun owners and Second Amendment supporters. We are as diverse as any cross-section of America. Many of our women, like victims of these mass public murders, have endured unspeakable violence themselves or lost loved ones. Their stories are similar to Kate Nixon's. It was reported that Kate knew her coworker was unstable and felt that he would shoot up the place. Her husband encouraged her to take a pistol to work, but she didn't want to break the rules. She followed the policy that was supposed to keep her safe, a gun-free zone, and she was murdered the next day in the Virginia Beach tragedy. These laws and policies are taking away a woman's right to choose. Gun rights are women's rights. That's why I'm honored to be here today, to be a voice for the millions of Americans who share, American women who share my ideology, but are not represented in mainstream media or squelched on social media. As a woman, I'm likely smaller and less equipped for violence than an attacker, or if I'm outnumbered by people who may do me harm, my firearm is the great equalizer and levels the playing field. I married late in life, and I spent the majority of my adult life sleeping by myself. There were so many nights that there were bumps in the nights, and I'm sure it's happened to you guys, but I have a peace because I have a firearm by my side, specifically an AR-15. I own and carry firearms not to take a life, but to protect a life. I am worth protecting. My family is worth protecting. So why does anybody need an AR-15? Let me explain it in shoes. You wouldn't run a marathon in dress shoes, and you wouldn't go to a formal ball in sneakers. Similarly, each of my firearms have a specific purpose. The AR-15 just falls in the category of that really comfortable dressy shoe that gets called on in many occasions. It's my go-to for home defense and vehicle gun. As a competitor, I've turned a hobby into a living, and my husband hunts with an AR. The AR-15 platform is the most popular general-purpose rifle because it's the most versatile and most customizable. And freedom doesn't ask why the need. To quote William Pitt the Younger, necessity is the plea for every infringement on human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. For 22 years, I enforced the laws you created, and I had a front row seat to the justice system. It's frustrating to see the revolving door where prosecutors reduce or drop charges and judges give minimal sentencing. I find it ironic in today's effort of criminal justice reform that you are taking steps to be lenient on people who have actually committed crimes against laws you've already created, while at the same time proposing more laws that turn ordinary law-abiding citizens like myself into criminals. How about holding the people accountable for the laws that are already on the books before we pass any further legislation that would only be a burden on the law-abiding? If these laws were the answer, Chicago, Baltimore, LA, and even this city would be the safest city in America. The firearms community is #doing something. We are leading the way on meaningful safety measures. I implore you, work with us instead of demonizing us. Law-abiding American gun owners are not the enemy. Help our community promote programs like Project Child Safe, Eddie Eagle, and the Kids Safe Foundation that teaches kids about firearm safety. Faster Saves Lives and School Shield are school security programs. And Walk the Talk America is suicide prevention programs. These are initiatives that are being driven by the firearms industry. If you really want to make a difference in gun-related deaths, get behind these programs and fund them, because we believe one life unjustifiably taken is one life too many. Let's put firearms education back in schools and start protecting our kids like we protect the people in this building. Education over legislation. Thank you for your time to speak. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for your time and your service.
The shift in federal policy regarding bump stock serves as a primary example of legislative volatility. Overnight, law-abiding citizens were forced to choose between the disposal of personal property or the risk of felony charges. Such retrospective criminalization creates a climate of uncertainty, where individuals who have committed no harm are transformed into criminals by administrative decree rather than by a specific criminal act. Central to this discussion is the formation of the DC Project, an initiative comprising women from every state seeking to humanize the Second Amendment. These women argue that firearm rights are fundamentally tied to self-determination and personal safety. By bringing diverse voices to the halls of power, they aim to dispel common misconceptions and emphasize that gun owners are a representative cross-section of the entire nation. The argument for the firearm as an equalizer is particularly resonant for women who may find themselves physically outmatched by an aggressor. In this context, a firearm is not merely a tool of violence, but a mechanism for balancing the scales of personal security. For those who live or travel alone, the peace of mind provided by a reliable defense tool is a practical necessity that transcends political or academic debate. Mueller specifically defends the utility of the AR-15 platform, describing it as the most versatile and customizable tool for home defense and sporting competition. She rejects the notion that the government should dictate the specific parameters of an individual's defensive equipment. Fromer viewed the popularity of this platform stems from its functionality, making it a logical choice for those serious about their own protection. A significant portion of the frustration stems from the perceived failure of the current justice system. Critics point to a revolving door where violent offenders often receive lenient sentences or reduced charges. This creates a striking irony while the system exhibits leniency toward actual criminals. It simultaneously pursues new regulations that target citizens who have consistently adhered to every existing legal requirement. The data from cities with the strictest regulations suggests that legislation alone is not a panacea for violence. Regions with high levels of control often continue to experience significant safety challenges, calling into question the efficacy of further restrictions. This suggests that the root causes of violence may lie deeper than the availability of specific tools, requiring a shift in focus toward enforcement and mental health. Instead of further legislation, there is a strong call for expanding education and safety programs. Initiatives focused on responsible storage, child safety, and suicide prevention are often driven by the firearms community itself. By funding these proven programs, policymakers could address the complexities of firearm safety without infringing upon the constitutional rights of millions of citizens who have done nothing wrong. The philosophical core of this resistance is the belief that necessity is the frequent plea for infringements on human freedom. When the state demands more control in the name of safety, it often does so at the expense of the very liberties it was established to protect. This perspective views the move toward bans not as a solution to crime, but as a systematic effort to disarm the populace and centralize power within the state. The debate ultimately centers on whether the government should trust its citizens or treat them as latent threats. Law-abiding gun owners argue that they are not the enemy and that their exclusion from the policymaking process only leads to ineffective and divisive laws. True progress requires a collaborative approach that respects the right to self-defense while addressing the actual sources of instability within our society. In the end, the testimony of a seasoned officer serves as a stark reminder that laws are only as effective as the consent of the governed. When individuals who have spent their lives upholding the system begin to see it as an instrument of overreach, the legitimacy of that system is called into question. Protecting the vulnerable and preserving liberty are not mutually exclusive goals, but they require a foundation of reason and mutual respect.